Welcome to episode 71 of Sport SA Daily Diary. Today we're chatting to a gentleman who only started riding his bike in his 60s and is now a world champion, Arthur Duncan. Good morning, Arthur. How are you doing today, sir?
Very well. It's a beautiful day here, a bit nippy, but otherwise absolutely wonderful.
Good. I'm glad. Did you manage to go out for a ride this morning?
Actually, Adam, I've had a bit of a problem with my knee, and I've got an indoor trainer, so I'm on the indoor trainer at the moment, so that's super. Weather doesn't matter, but I'm looking forward to a ride on the road tomorrow, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure. I was actually on the road this morning on my bike, and it's so pleasant because there's so few cars. So for the cyclists and runners, it's absolute heaven at the moment.
Yeah, it is. Long may it last.
Yeah, absolutely. Arthur, I mean, you've got an amazing story, and we'll get into that shortly. Just from a sporting perspective, were you always a sporty guy growing up at school, after school? Were you active, or was it really just in later life that you took up cycling?
Yeah, it certainly was only in later life, actually. It was a crisis I was facing in my own life, and I was in my early 60s, and that's when I started, yeah.
So, I mean, at school, were you active in any form of sport, or was it not really a thing?
I was just an average school kid, played cricket, played a bit of rugby, played a bit of soccer, just a bit of everything. But nothing caught me to the point that I was drawn into it after school.
Okay. And then, I mean, you say you were going through a bit of a personal situation. We don't have to delve into that. But
yes.
So get into cycling, and to get into cycling at your level at the age of 65, I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was a journey I had to take, Adam. And what actually happened was I went into depression for 3 years, became totally antisocial. And in fact, I was showing inclinations of becoming a recluse. And I went to visit my daughter and son-in-law, and he had a bicycle, and asked him if I go for a ride on his bike. Hadn't ridden a bicycle since I was a teenager, which was 40 odd years earlier. And when I went for this ride, I just noticed it was elevating me out of my depression. And as a result of that, I brought the bike home with me. I started riding on a regular basis, and I set myself a challenge. And that challenge was to ride a bicycle from sea level to the highest peak in southern Africa, which is Taban in Tlanyana in Lesotho, via Sane Pass. And I didn't know anybody who was a cyclist. I didn't own a bicycle myself. And so I had nobody to talk to, but I set myself a training program, which was half an hour a day. And then on a Saturday morning, I'd ride up to Nottingham Road and back, which was 85 Ks. So that's what I did for a few months. And the day arrived, and there I set off. And I tell you what, it was hugely, hugely challenging. I had to learn to really dig deep. And anyway, I managed to get to the top of Sane Pass, met my Basotho guide, and off we went to find the top of the highest peak in southern Africa, Taban in Tlanyana. And when I summited that, Adam, it became the turning point of my life. I came back from that, and I realized that I'd got myself relatively fit physically, but there was more to health than just physical fitness. And I took a genuine interest in this whole subject, and I started to buy books and do a bit of research. Eventually, I enrolled for a course at UNISA for a course on natural health and nutrition. And so it's evolved from there. And of course, it's become part of my life. It's my lifestyle. And in fact, I'm right in the middle now of setting up a little booklet, which will be a self-coaching booklet on keeping well and aging well. And so that's my next project. But that's how I got into cycling. I came back from that event, and I then got myself a bike. And my first event I cycled in was the Giants Challenge, which was an 80K mountain bike ride in the Drakensberg. In those days, it was the most challenging mountain bike event in South Africa. And I rode it on 10 occasions, and I was the oldest cyclist on 8 of those. They created a trophy in my name, and when they abandoned the event, a few years later, they phoned me and they said, look, we've got this trophy and we'd like to give it to you. So I've got that trophy as a momentum. That was the start of my cycling career.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's been an incredible journey. And as I said to you, when I reached the summit of Taban Interland, it was a turning point in my life. Yeah. It's really amazing what's happened in my life, and I just want to share it with others, Adam. And I want to, as I say, get this little coaching, self-coaching project on the off and running, and help people to realize it doesn't matter what the age is, they can still get going, and they still can get healthier, and they can still actually age better than they are.
I mean, if we just go to that solo ride, I mean, it's not as if you did it with assistance. You did that solo by yourself. I've run up Sane Pass. I went with my brother-in-law and he rode and I ran. I actually beat him by an hour because that's how difficult it is to ride up there. So if we could do that, to ride up Sane Pass plus 200 odd Ks in your legs already and then still get to the peak of Southern Africa. I mean, that's incredible.
Well, yeah, Adam, I was doing it with an object to try and get myself out of depression, because I noticed that when I rode this bicycle, I was always feeling a lot better, and it did get me out of depression. And I think that was part of the medicine that got me there was that event. Actually, I did speak to a psychologist who I knew, and I shared my story with him. He said, "Look, Arthur," he said, "we as a psychologist could not have done anything for you better than what you've done for yourself. In fact, we could never have done for you what you did for yourself." So that was very encouraging.
I think during this lockdown period, I think that's why a lot of South Africans have been getting out running and riding, and I mean the roads are packed, and I think it's helping South Africa actually just stay sane at the moment, because the exercise certainly does just help your mind just as much as it helps your body.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. We all know it. When once we get into cycling or running, if we can't get out and do that cycle or run, we really don't feel that good, eh? But once we get out there, boy, the endorphins kick in, and we start enjoying the fresh air and the sunshine and camaraderie and fellowship. And that's very important as well, of course, is just being able to get together with like-minded people and enjoy a cup of coffee afterwards, or breakfast or whatever.
Yeah, when we're allowed that coffee and breakfast again. Arthur, you didn't stop there. Then Sane to see came knocking on your door.
Yeah, before Sane to see, actually, I had quite an interesting sporting experience. I was able to do a thing called the Mana Wild Ride, which is a 5-day event along the Transkei coast from Khai Mouth to Mgazi River bungalows. And on one of those events, I had to find a partner. And I didn't know this chap, but anyway, somebody introduced me to a chap by the name of Colin Burden. He had done 20 Doozys. So I spoke to Colin. He said, he'd love to do it with me. So he did that with me. And after the Mana Wild Ride, we got together one day and had a cup of coffee. And I said to Colin, Colin, do you think I could do Doozy? And he looked at me and he said, Arthur, I don't know of any 70-year-old that could do Doozy. But Arthur, I think you could. So at 72, I did my first Doozy and became the oldest novice ever to have done it at that stage. And then when I was 77, 5 years later, I did my second Doozy with Colin, and became the oldest paddler ever to have done the Doozy at that stage. And I might tell you, Adam, that I'd never paddled before in my life.
Jeepers, Arthur, that's just incredible. So, but you've then, I mean, just go back to the Sane. You've then done the Sane a number of times as well. What was more challenging, the Doozy or the Sane?
They're both endurance sports, and I think that that challenge I set myself to do that ride from sea level to the highest peak in Southern Africa gave me the endurance and my understanding of endurance sport and my enjoyment of endurance sports. So both the Doozy and Sane are endurance sports. Obviously, different format and different muscles that you use in your bodies, etc. But I think they're equally tough. They're both very tough events. You've got to really dig deep to finish in a reasonable and respectable time. So, yeah, I don't think I can say much more than that. They're both challenging.
Okay. And then again, that didn't stop you there. You've since gone on to represent South Africa at the UCI World Champs. That's unbelievable for a spring chicken like yourself.
Yeah, Adam, I must say, you know, when you plan these things, it's all the joy and the theory and the thoughts and, oh, this is going to be wonderful, it's going to be glamorous and everything else like that. And then the moment arrives, you have to pack your bags and get into the car and drive to the airport. And, oh, goodness me, then all the challenges really start. But yeah, I was very blessed in 2015 when I was 80. I went to my first UCI World Tour Championship. It was 120 odd Ks that we rode, and I had to ride with and that's all age category racing. And I won my age category, but I had to ride with the 70 plus, and it goes up in 5-year increments, 70 to 75, and then 75 to 80 and 85. So because I was the only cyclist, I had to ride with a 70-year-old. So they didn't award me the actual honor of the title. But I did speak to them about it, and I said, I really believe this is unfair, that a senior athlete is denied the opportunity of winning the title because there aren't a certain number of people in the event with him. Anyway, they said, tough luck, that's what it is. And then in 2018, I went back. I went to Albi in France in 2018 to the same event, and also 120 odd K. So we got to ride the same distance of the other riders. What I explained to them, what a lot of people don't understand is, a senior athlete.
Sorry, Arthur, we lost you there. Keep chatting to us about your second UCI World Cup experience.
Okay, yeah. I had a chat to them and I said to them, look, what you chaps don't realize is that with the aging body, of course, we have a decline in organ capacity, muscle mass diminishes, we lose our VO2 max, and we've got to train equally as hard, if not harder, to actually keep going at a competitive level, ride these long distances and finish in a respectable time. Anyway, I actually had ended up with correspondence with UCI on this one. And they just said, no, sorry, that's going to be the rule. But I do see, because I went onto their site just recently, and I see that they now say that once the first rider enters, there will be a medal and jersey. And I'm going to confirm that. And if that's right, I'm going back. I'm determined to get one.
Well, good. I should hope so. But I think unofficially we'll certainly award you the title of world champion, because that's certainly deserved.
Thank you, Adam.
Then Arthur, tell us, you rode the Sane to Sea with your grandson, who's also quite an up-and-coming sportsman himself.
Yes, he is, Adam. We live in the Kloof, and so we're in a mountain biker's paradise. And so he's grown up cycling around the farm and out onto the Kloof trails. And when I rode with him in last year, he was 18 years of age, and he was the current overall South African enduro champion.
Sure.
So he's got a great future. He's been overseas. His sponsor sent him overseas last year, but he had a nasty fall. Had to come back and have surgery. But he's such a positive young guy, and he's out there, and he'll do well, extremely well.
Quite the sporty family then. Arthur, I noticed behind you there was a large trophy. Is that the SA National Road Champs trophy?
It isn't really. It was awarded to me by And this is a KZN Commission trophy. Yeah, no, it wasn't an SA Champions trophy. Yeah, yeah.
But that trophy you certainly have won, and you've won it twice, I believe.
Yes, I with the South African Championships, I've won it. I'm not too sure how many times, but I think it's about 4 times I've been the national and provincial, both road and individual time trial champion.
Sure.
I am the current one anyway.
That's incredible, Arthur. What are your plans, Arthur, for the future? I mean, obviously you'd like to continue riding. How long do you believe you can continue?
Well, that's an open question, and I know, we age and all these declining things are happening, but I'm just keeping very, very positive, very, very focused. I'd like to find a new challenge in terms of riding my bicycle and paddling. Maybe I have had some thoughts, but these things all cost a lot of money to do and things like that. But yeah, look, I've got a very open mind. I'm determined to carry on. And if I get another opportunity, my fortunate thing is that I keep fit the whole year round. Yeah. And in 2018, when Stuart, my son-in-law, asked me to ride Sane with him, that was the same son-in-law who gave me the bike to ride when I was in my depression. And he phoned me 2 weeks before Sane. His son was riding with him, but he had to write an exam. He said, "Arthur, you up to riding Sane?" And I said, "I'm in." And so I rode Sane with my son-in-law in 2018. Yeah. And yeah.
And Arthur, you mentioned that you are looking at helping other people to live a healthier life and maybe not have to go through the experiences that you went through. What advice would you give to somebody that is in a bit of a slump, is struggling a bit, especially with the current situation, to maybe use sport to get out of it?
Yeah, I think sport would be very helpful for anybody. It doesn't matter what their age or ability is, but just to find something that they can do. If they can only walk, then walk. But the big and the most important aspect is regularity. To do it on a regular basis, not to do it one day and not the next day. They must do it on a regular basis, where they go out walking, learn to ride a bicycle again, and there are so many folk doing this. And of course, you can get in with a group, and they always are open and available to newcomers, and you have that social connection as well. So those are all very positives in a time like this. We've got to keep focused. We will get through this. But our mind plays such a huge part in this whole thing, whether it's in our sport or in our daily lives. We've got to be positive. We've got to realize that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we've just got to keep going forward. I know it's very difficult, very challenging, and I know you have those moments. We all have those moments, but I've learned, I've learned positivity. I've learned to train and teach myself to be a positive person. My glass is not half full. It's overflowing all the time. My glass is overflowing. And we can get there. And one of the biggest things that I've learned in all of my experiences is the control of my mind, my thoughts, my thinking. Yeah. And I just would like to help other people get there as well, Adam.
And Arthur, for people in need that are listening to this podcast, how would they get in touch with you? Facebook, or are you going to have a website up and going, or what?
I'm on Facebook, so if people can contact me on Facebook, I think that's the easiest today. And of course, at my age, I'm not a technology freak, so I don't know. Facebook is very easy for me.
Yeah, awesome.
But anyway, as I said earlier on, I'm hoping to put this little booklet together, and that's going to be available, and people will be able to get the whole story, the whole picture.
Okay. Well, once it's done, please do share it with us, and we'll we'll share it on Black and White Sports Marketing's platforms for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Arthur, it's been fantastic chatting to you today on Sport SA Daily Diary. Thank you for sharing your very inspirational story with us. And we look forward to seeing you being duly crowned the world champion, hopefully either this year or next.
Adam, thank you for that. And I'll keep my side of the bargain.
Excellent. Thanks, Arthur.
Okay, take care.
Don't miss tomorrow's episode of Sport SA Daily Diary, where we chat to one of South Africa's straightest shooters, Archer Denel Wenzel.